Hello, Professor, and anyone who might be watching this video. My name is Angel Garcia, and today I will be explaining the things that we saw and learned during this semester in the subject of history of the English language. So, first of all, we must mention that English has gone through a lot of changes during its development, mainly due to the influence of other languages. So during the history, we are going to be seeing that most of the changes are due to external influence. So the first period of English is what we call the Old English, which was the foundation of the English language as we know it today. It developed after the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes to Britain in around the 5th century. The Old English is also known as Anglo-Saxon, and this was a fully inflected language. This language was predominantly Germanic in origin, but as I mentioned before, it evolved due to external influences, mainly Latin through the Christian missionaries in around the 597 AD, with added terms in religion, education, administration, such as bishop, school, and altar. Also, due to the Viking invasions and also uh, these invasions added the Old Norse that added everyday terms such as sky, egg, and take. As I mentioned before, English has been influenced by foreign nations, by foreign languages, such as the Celtic influence which mainly added words to the language, also the Latin influence, which added words related to religion or scholar related stuff. But also we have the Scandinavian influence, which extended to the vocabulary, grammar, and even syntax of the language. We also must mention that after this event, we go to the Norman Conquest, which was a turning point to the English language. This was due to the influence of the French language that became the language of the court, law, and the high class during this time in Britain, and Latin continued to be the language for the church and scholarship. This made English be the lower level or working class language. However, during this mix and this merge of languages, both English enriched itself by adding, in the majority of the cases, a lot of vocabulary, mostly in the aspects of law and government, but also in culture and in arts. Also, it's worth mentioning that this coexistence of both languages helped English to be a less complex in the fact that many inflections were dropped out in order to make the communication easier. However, after this time, English went into the period of reestablishment, which meant that English began to reassert itself uh, into the higher classes of society. This was mainly due to the Hundred-Year War, the Black Death, and some economic and political changes. Uh, a relevant event to this was that in 1362, the Statute of Pleading declared English as the language of courts, and by 1399, Henry IV became the first English speaking monarch since the conquest. Then we move on to the Middle English, which was a period that went from 1100 to 1500, and the Renaissance, which went from 1500 to 1650. During the Middle English period, English solidified its role as the people's language, but also enriched by French grammar and vocabulary. During the Renaissance, the revival of learning brought a massive current of Latin and Greek words to the language, but also this period witnessed the Great Vowel Shift, which was a phonological change that changed, as the name says, as I mentioned before, the vowel pronunciation laid the foundation for what we call modern English. Another important event was the printing, which was done by William Caxton in 76, and this helped standardized spelling and grammar throughout the English language. Then, lastly, we move on to the modern English time, which is a period that goes from 1500 to the present. This period of English is characterized by several things. The main one is the standardization of English in the aspects of grammar and spelling, but also due to the rapid vocabulary growth, due to other influences from other societies, from other nations, and from other languages, as English became the global language. The Great Vowel Shift, which began during the Middle English, as I mentioned before, finalized the phonological transition to modern English. So there are some key factors or key things that made English modern English as we know it today. One of those was the colonialism and trade, which introduced other words from other languages that had never influenced English before, bringing words like pajamas from Hindi, cigar from Spanish, or even kangaroo for our Aboriginal languages. Also, a lot of technological events added specialized language, and also the global influence as English became the lingua franca of the world. In conclusion, modern English is notable for its flexibility, but also the growth and adaptability and cosmopolitan vocabulary that characterizes it. With around 1.5 billion people globally speaking the language, English continues to adapt to the needs of its speakers and borrow from other languages in order to enrich itself even more. This helps it solidify its status as a dynamic and influential language around the world. So, thank you so much for your attention, and I hope to see you in another occasion. Bye bye.